Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our read-along of Frank Herbert's masterpiece, Dune. We have reached the end of the book. We are dealing with the final chapter today. The Emperor of the known galaxy, Shaddam IV, has been defeated. The navigational equipment of all of his spaceships have been shot off. His elite warriors have been routed in combat against the Fremen under the leadership of Paul Atreides, the son of the man the Emperor conspired to dethrone, to dispossess, and have murdered. Uh, all of the Emperor's forces have been routed by an armada of gigantic sandworms in undercover of the great-great-grandmother of all sandstorms. The Emperor knows he's beaten. I mean, his forces have been routed. His ships have been disabled. He is the physical captor of the Fremen under the control of Paul Atreides. And the ships in orbit over the planet are going to be kept on a short leash by Paul Atreides because they all need the spice melange in order to navigate, and it's only found on Dune. And Paul has signaled that he is perfectly willing to destroy it. Not one or two shipments, but to destroy the life cycle of spice so that there isn't any more. And interplanetary travel is impossible. So it's this final chapter, it's all over but the shouting. Frank Herbert needs to wrap up some loose ends. And a lesser writer would have spent this chapter just doing that. But Frank Herbert wants a little more excitement before he wraps up the main body of this work. And that excitement is that although the climax of the last chapter, that epic scene where legions of Fremen are riding out of a sand cyclone on the backs of giant sandworms, although that is an amazing climax action-wise to a science fiction shoot-'em-up, the main climax, the real climax of this story, is a knife fight between two young men. As you will know if you have seen any of the filmed versions of this story. The conclusion, Frank Herbert wisely understands, has to be personal. The old Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, who is dead, he's killed by Paul's sister Alia, but he was a willing participant in the Emperor's plan to kill Paul's father and destroy House Atreides. And he is dead. But his heir, Feyd-Rautha, a slim and very dangerous young man, he's now the Baron, and he is just as evil as his father, or as his uncle, as the Baron was. There's another evil Harkonnen, the Beast Rabban. He's a big name in this book, but not a large presence. I don't know if there is any filmed version of Dune. I don't think there is. There are 3 film versions of this story. And I think in all 3 versions, the director cannot resist showing us the death of Beast Rabban. We don't get that in the book. We're just told that he's dead. But Feyd-Rautha is very much alive, and he is in the entourage of the defeated Emperor. The Emperor is brought before Paul Atreides. Those of you who only know this story from the Denis Villeneuve movie will remember a visibly confused Christopher Walken as the Emperor. In the book, we're told that the Emperor is wearing a Sardaukar uniform with military insignia and whatnot, and a Sardaukar cap. That makes sense. He relies on the Sardaukar for the security of his throne. In the movie, the director, for some unknown reason, has Christopher Walken appear not only visibly confused as to what movie he's in, but wearing his wife's nightgown, which I think has a lot less dramatic effect than a military uniform would have had. But the Emperor is thinking he's resisting reality. He can't believe this is happening. And it is happening, and there's no way for him to undo it. If the Spacing Guild that controls all that spaceflight, if they are deferring to this man, then he has to. If his Sardaukar are defeated, then he's defeated. And his own daughter, Princess Irulan, who we finally meet, but we've heard her all throughout this book. We've read excerpts from a million books that she's written. She actually says to her father, well, hasn't this Paul Atreides person shown that he's worthy to be your son? He wants to marry me. He wants to marry Princess Irulan, even though he's in love with Chani, the Fremen woman. He wants to marry Princess Irulan in order to legitimize his claim to the throne. That's what he wants. Nothing less than that. He wants to depose Shaddam IV and become emperor. And Princess Irulan is trying to calm her father down and get him to see that this is going to happen anyway. Surely you should be graceful about it. But as a last-ditch effort to do I don't know what, uh, the Emperor lends his knife to Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen so that he and Paul Atreides can have a knife fight. It's it's not much of a gamble on Paul's part. We're led to believe that he is easily the match for Feyd-Rautha, but it is still a weird risk on both their parts. It's a weird risk on Paul's part because he isn't 100% sure that Feyd-Rautha won't have some trick up his sleeve. Feyd-Rautha not only has a trick, but he has two of them. And he's not 100% sure that he'll survive them. And also, what is the Emperor doing here? What is Shaddam the Fourth doing? So what happens if Feyd-Rautha wins? They're still surrounded by Fremen. They'd still be all murdered in an instant. It's not like the mantle of Muad'Dib, a religious fanatic ruler, can be transferred to Feyd-Rautha. It's still very satisfying. It doesn't go on for very long, but it's very satisfying. Of course, there's only one end for that knife fight. It's not possible that our hero is going to lose. And other plot elements need to be wrapped up as well. I mean, we need to deal with what's going to happen with who's going to be emperor. We also need to deal with Thufir Hawat, the old Duke's mentat, who thought that everyone that he served was dead and is now has been a member of House Harkonnen. He is in the entourage. He is on the planet. He hasn't been present in every scene. Years and years ago, decades ago now, I read a fugitive reading of these final chapters, a very furtive fugitive reading from a friend of mine, who posited that Frank Herbert never comes out and says, but leaves open the construing, that the reason Thufir Hawat isn't with the Emperor during the scene when he dresses down Baron Harkonnen is because he is with the Sardaukar killing Paul Atreides' son. The text doesn't disavow it, but it's a stretch. But he is in the crowd now, and he wants to live only long enough to apologize to the Lady Jessica, because he has wronged her in his thoughts. He has thought she was the traitor, just like Gurney Halleck did, and also to swear his fealty to Paul Atreides, his Duke, one last time before he collapses in a heap. So you get all sorts of plot stuff like that. Paul directly threatens guild navigators to let them know, I'm not just becoming emperor and a major stockholder in the Combe Corporation. I am your master. You will do what I say, or I will destroy the thing that gives your whole existence meaning. I will do it, and you know I will. So there'll be no more of this extortionate bargaining. There'll be no more prorated rates for space travel. You are my servants now. And the space travel, presumably, by implication, the space travel of every other house is at my discretion. So all of that is wrapped up in this chapter. And thanks to the knife fight, we end on an exciting note. It's not just a Trollope style wrapping up plot lines. There's one last bit of excitement. And that ends the book. But it doesn't end our discussion of the book. We'll continue for a few more days talking about the appendices. Like any good, whomping, great work of science fiction or fantasy, there are appendices to Dune. We might as well talk about some of them. So that's all for Dune, and we'll come back for the appendices next time. I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.